right, welcome everyone. It is me, Nina from Yoga Awakening Africa, and today I have Chantel joining us. Chantel, I hope I finally got your name right after all these years. How about giving everyone a little bit of insight into who you are, what you're up to, and yeah, then we can start our conversation.
Hi, Nina, and hi, everyone else. I'm Chantel, and I'm a newspaper editor and a journalist. I guess my story of who I am is I'm a storyteller. I'm
I was
also
just going to say, this is usually the reversal of roles at the moment. Hey, you're usually on the other side of this. I'm actually quite nervous.
I'm more nervous.
I love it.
So I've been doing yoga for many years, and for a lot of that time it was in the gym setting. So it was very much, physically focused. And during that time, I was very interested in sort of trying to learn to deepen my practice. But I was pretty ignorant about it. And so for a long time, it was just a physical thing for me. But yeah, during COVID, I did my yoga teacher training. And for the past nearly a year, I've been a qualified teacher.
I know, it's so exciting. I mean, this is kind of like where our paths met, is that you joined our yoga teacher training with the Academy of Yoga and Ayurveda. What was that like? Yeah, during lockdown. I think that's kind of like when it's you and Kush and Mel kind of like joined. And then I kind of somehow twisted your little wrist to join at the studio and to start a kind of a class. I think it's a Thursday evening that you've got now. But how about just chatting or letting everyone know about like how you kind of like benefited from the yoga journey? Like, how did that impact your life? Where were you before it? How has that kind of like moved to where you are now? Because what we see and who we see in front of us now is very different to that person from a couple of years ago.
Yeah, so I guess the journey that I'm on now, the path that I'm on now, started in 2017 when I found myself in a very difficult space, mentally and physically. I hadn't been looking after myself. I just completed my master's studies, which was incredibly difficult. And as someone who was accustomed to being an achiever, my master's really that process just brought me down to earth, but it was an incredible learning experience. And just a bit of background on that, I had gone to a technicon. So everything that we did was very practical focused. So it was like, you want to learn to be a journalist, this is what you need to know about the practice of journalism. And then when I did my master's, I went through the RPL process, the recognition of prior learning, where they said, okay, fine, you don't have a degree, you don't have honors, but we're going to let you into this postgraduate process. We're going to look at all of your experience over the years. And at the time, I think I had about 10 to 15 years experience as a journalist. And boom, there I was in this
Academic field.
theoretical and academic space. And I was a bit I felt like I was in over my head, but an amazing set of people around me, including my supervisor, and they got me through it. But during the process, what happened was I was going through so much difficulty that I stopped looking after myself. I was actually, like placating myself, but also punishing myself with food and alcohol. And at the end of the process, I had somehow picked up huge amounts of weight. And I remember stepping on the scale and it said 107.4. And I was like, oh gosh,
Wow.
what am I going to do? And the 1st of November, 2016, I handed in my thesis. And my husband was with me in Stellenbosch that day. And I said to him, I'm handing this over. And now I need to start a new thesis. And the new thesis was me.
And is this where you
And
started your blog page, then edited eating?
that's right. Yeah, it was about a year into my journey. Because that first year was incredible. I learned so much about myself personally, mentally. I was astounded at the mental strength and emotional strength that I had, and the support that came from around me. Because when I decided, hey, I need to shed some of this weight, I decided on how I was going to do it in terms of nutrition. And my husband said, okay, cool, I will do it with you. And
Amazing.
my
Amazing.
friend,
Because not a lot of people get that when they want to do a shift and a change.
absolutely. And, and my friend Brandon also said he would do it with us. And initially it was a 31-day paleo reboot. And, paleo can be incredibly restrictive. So it was no grains, no sugar, no alcohol. What was some of the other things? No dairy. It was like, and no processed food. And so we said, okay, fine. We have a lot of those things in the house. Went through the cupboards, donated things to family and friends, and we're like, let's start anew. And it worked. It worked for me. I felt amazing. That first year, I lost 36 Ks. And that's when I realized that I wanted to start blogging about it, because in addition to the physical changes, I was also realizing that there are massive psychological changes that happen. I still looked at myself in the mirror and I didn't see a transformed person.
Oh, interesting.
And also what happens is you reach a point where, and it's like that with novelty. Your weight loss is all that anyone wants to talk to you about. There's nothing else they want to know. Oh, you're looking amazing. How did you do it? And then you start questioning yourself, like, so was I not amazing before? Or was I not interested? And, it's people ask those things, because it was a stark contrast between then and now. And I needed to learn to come to grips with that.
Mm.
And so I decided that the best way for me to deal I was feeling, and also perhaps to help other people who were dealing with similar issues, was to tell my story, to share the funny things and the difficult things.
And that
it
is
was
what I love about your Facebook and your Instagram, is that it is very real. It's like what you're getting up to. It's like you and the dogs on the beach. It's like you having this to eat. It's you doing this race. It's you doing this yoga pose. It's you picking up these weights. Like it really is you. It's you share the lovely things, and you also do share the things that are maybe a little bit challenging, or not, that that people don't want to share.
yeah.
So no, I do.
No, absolutely. For me, it's always been important to be real, because there are lots of influencers and people out there on social media who are only showing you the great parts of life, the exciting parts. And the reality is that there are ups and downs. Yeah. And so I went through a massive down in 2020, just before lockdown was announced. I was going through a really, really tough time. And, I was in my early 40s, and I thought, oh gosh, is this what a midlife crisis is? And my husband and I were arguing. We just felt like we couldn't see eye to eye. And then suddenly the president announced lockdown. And
which is a hard thing when all of a sudden you like not seeing eye to eye to your partner, and then it's lockdown. You're like, okay, well, let's be in the space together now for how long? So not easy.
yeah,
And definitely not the only person who was experiencing that through that time.
definitely. And it was just such a period of huge change. And I came from an environment where my staff and I worked together incredibly closely. Like we'd be together 12 hours a day, 5 days a week. We probably spent more time together than we did with our families. And suddenly we were pulled out of the office and we were told, work from home. So, you know, there was my own difficulties, my own fears that I was having to deal with. And, you know, I was managing a team of about 30 journalists and subs and other editors. So it was quite a big team. So managing fears and a lack of understanding and confusion and all of those things, when I also hadn't gone through a pandemic before. So I didn't know what to do. It was kind of just like roll with the punches. And, you know, in a time like that, people rely on the media to get them credible information. So we had to stay safe, we had to stay home, but we also needed to make sure that people had the news, that we could tell the stories. And as community newspapers, we almost serve as companions to many of our readers. And so I didn't mention that at the start. I work in community media, so we focus on hyperlocal news. And during that time, there was also fear about how the virus was being spread, whether it was safe to distribute newspapers. And we did a lot of research into that, and we made the decision that we were going to continue distributing our papers, because for many of our readers, that's the only source of news that they can access. And because it's free, they don't have to go out and pay for it, when lots of people had their salaries cut, or they were so there were all those kind of things we considered, and we did get some backlash, but you know,
all the punches.
absolutely. And one of the things, the stories I always love to share is about an old woman in Fishhook, who wrote to us during that time to thank us for continuing to deliver her community newspaper, because she said, in this time of turmoil and uncertainty, that one certainty she had was that her paper was going to arrive every Thursday. And it was also during that time that I decided I was going to set a challenge for myself. I love these 7-day challenges, 15-day challenges. I was like, you know, the president said stay home for 21 days. So I said, okay, for those 21 days, I'm going to practice yoga every day. And at the time, I wasn't really comfortable with like sort of like just doing my own yoga practice. So I'd got an app, and every day at 5 o'clock, I had my ritual, lifted the carpet, swept the room, did my yoga. And to say that it had a profound impact on me is an understatement. It was something clicked. And for the first, and I'm even getting teary thinking about it now. For the first few days, I recall crying every time I moved into warrior pose, or any pose where you express any kind of strength or stability or groundedness. I would just be a ball of tears. And around the time, I also watched a documentary in which they spoke about Ho'oponopono, the Hawaiian forgiveness prayer. And I know there are many different variations, but the one that I learned was, I'm sorry, thank you, forgive me, I love you. I think that's how it goes. And I started incorporating that into the end of my yoga practice every day. And initially, I thought I was expressing it outwardly. And then I realized I was actually expressing it to myself. And it was just such a wonderful moment when I realized that, and the tears stopped, and, you know, it was a really beautiful time for me.
It's like the healing was able to begin in a sense. It's like the depth of healing went to another level, another layer.
Yeah, and so I think it was around that time that the Academy email came.
Join us. It'll be fun.
Announcing the training. And I'd actually tried to do the training once before. I'd gone to an open day, but the time commitment was sort of prohibitive. And here we go. The course was offered online. I was at home, and the pieces kind of just fell into place.
Mm-hmm. And so tell me, I mean, because I had shivers when you were speaking about your story. I don't often get that. And so I definitely know that that sense of like, getting on your mat, sweeping the floor, 5 o'clock in the morning, moving the carpet, putting your mat out, showing up for you and showing up for the healing that needed to happen is very, very powerful. And I think that is hopefully what a lot of listeners can take away is like having that dedication and that commitment to yourself. It's not for anyone else. It's not for anything else. It's for you. And you don't have to know why you're doing it at that point in time. Just know that if it feels like it's something that you're drawn to doing, or a challenge or something that you want, go with it. Like, don't suppress that intuitive feeling. Don't try to rationalize it, because then, like you said, like you experienced, you found more things. You found the forgiveness prayer, incorporated that, and again, that was able to take you a little bit further and deeper into that healing process. And it's a lifetime journey. I think anyone who's gone down the yoga teacher training or yoga path realizes, like, you do your 200 or your 300 hour and you think, okay, cool. And then you finish the training and you're like, I think I know less than when I started. What else can I start learning and training and exploring? And yeah. And so I think that journey of just growth and learning is phenomenal. And that's why, for me, I love to get teachers teaching straight away once they've done a 200 hour or 300 hour, is because you feel so unprepared in a sense, but you're never actually going to be prepared until you actually get on the mat. And you, even if it's just 2 or 3 students that you're meeting every week regularly, because there's something that you have got that they need to hear. And so anyway, so do you want to add on anything there before I go on?
No, I think I've covered it.
Good. So now I know another big part for you is this idea of like making yoga functional, getting it to communities, getting it out there to everyone, getting it to people who maybe can't or wouldn't normally be able to afford it. So what is the plan? How are you going to do this?
Yeah, so for now I've been testing things here and there. So for example, I recently did a yoga workshop with teachers, which was a very interesting experience because it was the biggest group I've ever taught. When the principal of the school said to me that there would be 30 people, I had to do my pranayama practice.
A little bit of grounded breathing.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. But that in itself was such a learning experience for me because many of them hadn't done yoga before, had very little exposure to yoga. They came from very diverse backgrounds. One teacher actually excused herself because, citing religious reasons. And for me, that was also a learning experience because we have to give people that space to say, no, this is not for me, or yes, I will try it. And like you've said, for me, the idea of making yoga functional is very important because I don't think that our only yoga practice happens on the mat. So people often say to me, how often do you practice yoga? And it's difficult to answer because I can't tell them how often I'm on the mat, but I do know that I'm using it when I'm taking something out of a high cupboard or when I'm, moving into my lasana to get something way down on the ground. So the way I approached that the teachers workshop was, I said to them, give me five movements that are common in your day. And I tried to work that into different asanas and to bring it onto the mat and to make it fun. Yeah, so, and I'm also looking to work with older people. My folks are, like, my dad's going to be 80 at the end of this month. My mom is in her mid-70s, and they've always been pretty active and want to remain active, and they're quite keen to do yoga as well. Not so keen to have to get down on the floor and get up all the time. And so I've said to them, well, there are other options. And then also a silly little thing I'm working on is, I'm very passionate about my dogs. People rarely see me.
If you go and see your Instagram, you will see that, like, I don't know, 80%, 90% is nearly all
Yep.
about your dogs. Yeah.
And so I often joke that my next blog is going to be called "Can the Dogs Come Too?" because they go just about everywhere with us, and we've kind of incorporated them into our lives. And so dog school and dog training is a big thing for us as well. And one of the things I've picked up is that many people who do come to dog school come there because they love their pets and they want to be able to communicate better with them. But many also don't really have a relationship with their pets, let alone a physical relationship. And so I've been playing around with this idea of like how we can start each session with some yoga in which like you do your forward fold and you pet your dog and, just making it fun, because I think often, we can be pretty serious when it comes to yoga and, don't stray from anything, don't try anything different. And then the big idea is I'm going to be moving soon, and we're looking at building a yoga studio where we can start bringing yoga to communities that don't readily have access to it. And so I'm very excited about that.
Yeah. And that is really exciting. And I can't wait to share when that all happens with everyone. But this isn't like a project that is just your idea that has come out. This was like an idea that you and your husband have had together. And what I wanted to speak a little bit to or at is I had the same with Craig. Like I was saying before we were popping record on this interview, is like when I got to Mozambique, it was stressful. It was like I'm not out on the coast where it's beautiful and pristine. Like I'm in the middle of farmland in the middle of nowhere. And I struggled, and our relationship struggled because we were together 24/7, and then all of a sudden he was on the farm like 12 hours and I was with no one. And so then we found that we had to find a project or something that would work that we could build together. And so it just started with morning walks. At 5 o'clock in the morning, we just started walking. And we probably did that for a good year, and we were just chatting. It was like our time. And then all of a sudden we're like, well, what is the long-term goal? Like, what do we want to do? And then that sparked more conversation. And that, again, I can't divulge now because I'm not able to do that. But like our next phase, our next dream is happening as well. And I wanted to just speak to the importance of like when you've got your partner, how important it is to have like a joint project together. And do you want to share something on that front and like how it's helped your relationship as well? Oh, has it helped your relationship? Maybe it hasn't.
Yeah, it definitely has. Definitely has helped us. And so, my husband is I think the best way to describe him, and he even struggles to describe himself when people ask him what he does. He's an artist. So he does film, he does photographs, he does video, and he's a creative. And I'm a creative too, and we know what happens when two creatives get together.
You have all those lovely books and records in the background, and like, yeah.
So initially, I mean, I'll be honest, and I was quite resistant to moving because we've got our little nest here, in our character home, and when he said to me, "Let's buy his family home," I was like, "Oh gosh, I didn't want to move. I didn't want to become unsettled." But one of the reasons that I decided let's take this leap, was this particular home has been in his family for nearly 100 years. His father, who is 80 now, was born there, turned 80 there last year. And there's a very special thing about having land, having that kind of legacy in a family for such a long time. And, we decided, okay, let's go with it. And sort of while we were toying with the idea, initially we thought, oh, we'd rent it out. And then Andre said to me, why don't we build a dojo? And he meant a yoga studio, but he calls it a dojo just to.
It's going to be called the yoga dojo. I'm so certain of this.
And it's been the most amazing thing for us working on this together. It's given us purpose. It's given us a goal. I think for a long time, both of us were just kind of like working at our own thing. He was working at his art. I was working at my job in the media. I was developing my yoga practice and sort of just thinking of plans on my own. And then suddenly here was this house, a space that hasn't yet physically brought us into it, but the planning and the excitement around it has really brought us closer together. And of course, there's been some stressful times, but with Andre also just being the creative, he's designed the space that I'm so excited to move into. So it really has been a wonderful experience for the two of us to work on that together.
Awesome. That's so amazing. I'm so glad to hear that. And like you say, it's not all sunshine and roses all the time. Like, there are hard conversations that you have to have, and there are little fights, because then you figure out like where the friction is and what's important to you and what's important to your partner, and like how do you find and navigate that middle ground. And it opens up that whole realm of like, okay, how do we improve our communication with each other and other people. And again, it brings you back to that yoga where you're going like inwards, you looking at yourself and like how you react and respond, and so it kind of like always brings us back to that space of learning and growing, and kind of like with the two creatives, I just think of like Akasha, which is kind of like this idea of like space. It's like as you like declutter and things move out and get a bit more organized, like it creates that space for potentiality and new possibilities. And so I'm super excited to see how that space develops. So with that, I mean, like those are big plans for the year ahead. Any other plans?
Well, I'm quite keen this year to upgrade to my 300-hour yoga teacher training. All depends on time and how things go on the side. Other than that, I haven't really set any sort of like major. I mean, not that starting a yoga studio is not a major plan.
I just do that in my free time, just a quick little yoga studio here and there.
But yeah, I'm taking things as they come this year. Yeah.
Okay, very good, very good. And so for anyone out there thinking of doing a yoga teacher training, let's maybe like end on that note. Like, what is the process that you maybe went through, and why did you decide on kind of like our one in the end? And yeah, any tips and ideas for others out there looking to maybe embark on going on a journey like this?
So I think one of the things that I've noticed, not only in myself, but also other people, like when you go on a life-changing journey, whether it's through exercise or nutrition or yoga or Pilates or whatever, you realize the transformative possibilities and you want to share that with others. So for many people, that idea of being a teacher, being able to teach other people, is often top of their priority list, which is awesome. But what I also realized through my yoga teacher training was that even if I didn't teach another day in my life, that training wouldn't be wasted. It was so transformative. for me personally, and it just really deepened my yoga practice, my understanding of the path, my understanding of myself. And so even if people don't want to teach, but they would like to deepen the yoga practice, it's definitely worthwhile doing the training. In terms of why I did it with the academy, personally, I love that it wasn't being crammed into 6 weeks or 2 months. So it was comprehensive. Even from just the plan on paper, I could see that it was comprehensive. And yes, we did take a little bit longer than we had anticipated, but that was also fine. That was how it was meant to be for us. We did do it when the world was turned upside down. And we had amazing teachers, and my introduction to the academy was Pramila, because I had done Art of Living with her before. And then when I first came to a physical open day with you guys, I met the rest of the teachers. So yeah, so that's why I chose the academy.
Yeah, no, it's really good to hear. And again, like it comes back to, it's funny, like you and your husband, like this, the creatives, like this idea of like space. Like some people, like just having like the 4 weeks or the 6 weeks and get it done. But I find that for real transformation to happen, like there has to be that time and that space where you can assimilate. And like you say, maybe you want to teach, maybe you just want to do it for yourself. But when you kind of like go through the asanas with Jennifer, she has such a way of teaching them that it's so transformative in the sense that your body molds into a way or adapts a posture that the way it needs. And that only comes with time and practice and, coming back week after week, practicing the same thing again and letting your body experience and relax into the pose instead of having to be like picture perfect on what what you see in a book or in a manual. It's actually, okay, how can I feel into myself and make sure that this is the most comfortable and steady way to be? So yeah, I could go on and on because I love talking about yoga, but this is not all about me. This is actually meant to be about you. So any last thoughts and ideas or any takeaways for anyone kind of like, thinking on maybe embarking or starting a journey?
I think if I think about how yoga has been most useful and effective and powerful for me, it's been those moments where I'm not just on my mat doing a practice. It's when I've brought it into real life. And I'll never forget, there was a moment when I was training for my first marathon that was also under COVID. So it was rough because we couldn't run in big groups and we couldn't have club training and all of these other things. But there was no way I did 2Ks alone. So my big training run I did with a group, and it was going to be the longest distance I'd ever covered on foot. And I think it was at around 27 Ks. I just thought, gosh, I cannot do this anymore. And started questioning myself. And then I just thought, hold on a minute. I'm sure there's some breathing that can help with this. I'm sure there's something. And I ran with my hands in chin mudra. And I practiced some Ujjayi breath. And I just felt myself calm right down. And I said to myself, just put one step in front of the other. And if it's too painful, if you feel that that there's no ahimsa here, just let it go. It doesn't matter. Stop. And that's how I finished the last 5Ks. And I think that has been the power of yoga for me, learning to bring it into everyday life. And on a very personal note, also, my dad was really ill last year, and really struggling with anxiety around his illness. And he's a very practical and stoic man. And as a throwaway comment, I said, Dad, there's some breathing work that we do in yoga that might help you. If you ever want me to do some with you, give me a call. And he called me the next day and he said, remember what we spoke about yesterday? And to this day, he's still doing his square breath.
Oh, how magical. How magical, hey?
So, yeah, and then I think that also speaks to yoga's capacity for bridging those divides, and for, when approached differently and at the right time, people are receptive.
Yeah, but it also very much speaks to like you and your personality and your growth and your confidence, and just being that person who will say, listen, there's something that could help you. If you want help, I'm there for you. And I think not a lot of people do that, and not a lot of people offer that. And I think it's phenomenal that you can, that you did, and that you do. So amazing. Love it. Love you to bits. You're so cool. I want to be like you when I'm big and grown up. Chantel, it's been a blast. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nina.
Look forward to catching you at the studio.
Yes.